They're Cash Patel. They're FBI and Judge Napolitano. And Judge Napolitano's judging freedom. There are people on off the Connecticut judicial branch offices and on off the state corrections offices involved with the Wethersfield police with wire crime acts and methods and digital crime acts and methods, and involved with them with predicate acts methods where they attach me to fake conversations with them as a kid and then as an adult in falsified police reports. The police report the police families that did that as families too, and one's tied to them. They had timed collusions with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. This is not only recorded, but them putting predicate acts with facts and collusion slash S with all natures of crime scenes and names next to them, including at the news and the names of the intelligence next to the news. The difference of their guilt. WFSB, Connecticut's Channel 3 News, attached me to fake conversations with them about the World Trade Center attack. And when I caught them abusing kids, with a forcing a child abuser principle of kids, with all kinds of digital and sexual and medical crimes against the kids, and the difference of that. So they have collusions with the other people involved with it from off campuses too. That brought it up. Increasingly, there are people involved with the name Scalora, increasingly involved with child offenders, leaders of kids, involved with the houses near me, with the Wethersfield police and other police departments with them personally and professionally, including courts, forging and switching names. Facebook also has roles with them. Also with the word extremism, is they recorded themselves using the word extremism, criminally foreign influence, and tactically delusions raw, criminally foreign influence slash hypercriminally foreign influence, if you will, because know how the international companies in different countries they were fighting with them themselves, but they left out how they had roles with criminally foreign influence, things like slavery entrenched, because they were affected by, like we are too, still affected by hypercriminal foreign influences. You guys have replaced what our founders communicated, like about James Madison's plan before he was a president, and while he was a president, demonstrably he didn't have free speech. That preaching method was unfolding. They were still in the they still are in the process. They were still in the process of counter-extorting and forcing to be the other founders. In other words, and I was told to get the Constitution unabridged. The breaching method is measuring and maintaining other being and having been communicated than what is declassified by our founders, which is distinct from what they said. We have that self-valued, while simultaneously the other natures of things that are published, the difference between that is multi-front against people trying to use the hyper-evidential. Like we have black people's whites of eyes. We could, the science is A, the names of the people, the science is A through Z, they have failed this syntactically. It's because they are a certain type of victim slash hyper victim. So Wethersfield police and other police departments and courts, there are collusions at all natures of crime scenes. And they have predicate acts with facts methods with the news at the same time to prevent the right outcome. So increasingly too, on off the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices and on off the state corrections offices, they have roles with a whole bunch of people tied to and as ones with Wethersfield Pizza House, which is not far from the state judicial branch offices. They have wire crime acts and methods of Wethersfield police refusing to identify themselves and others legitimately. They confess there's the name Scalora is involved with Wethersfield police with predicate acts and with more abusers of kids with the same house slash S recorded, confess, demonstrate, involved with them, with retired police chiefs and their intimate ties. A whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital, directly and indirectly, have roles of people named O'Brien and Kalola with identity theft, fraud, slanders behind my back with their educators too, putting fake things in databases and attaching me and everyone around me to fake and changed communications and about the World Trade Center attack. These are also people recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with people with the name Scalora in Florida at like Miami, Orlando, Florida, and with the World Trade spots next to the World Trade Center in Manhattan, New York, right before the attack, and long term and short term before it. They had time plots, rules with identity theft, fraud, slaves with a whole bunch of different countries too, and people from Cuba. And the difference, because they have psychiatry at countries A through Z with those databases. For example, they have ones with badges, with intelligence. When did they have the ability to defend their integrity? Why should we have faith in the FBI? We should not have faith in the FBI. They can't even get. They have grouped criminal enterprises tactically wrong. We are a human species body of individual bodies with all group differences, with nature's identity generating them and showing us this, and how the breaching method employed other to be communicated for black pupils, whites of eyes, and others communicated for our founders. The scientific value of the breaching method was and is replaced right from the communications of our founders. So we're going to examine the nature of, the quality aspects of fact-checking nature, the styles of it, and how they defend it, right where and how they shouldn't, if we really pay attention to what unabridged Constitution and why and how we have rights that are too numerous to have to list them, and why and how we have not had explained to us properly, even if they were made up. One of the things witch trials are about, for example, are the same thing those other laws were about that were entrenched, and all were roles with it. There were internationally monitored conversations where each one of the countries were sick because themselves they were affected by a hyperforeign that forced, tricked, and persuaded names A through Z to defend themselves, not knowing how to do so properly, and more self-valuing in those defenses, syntactical self-value, the uses of the names of the sciences, the names of the people, the sciences, abridged, incapable of defending that and affording to be, let alone to protract, short words with convictions proper by nature, by science. There's a difference between science that's criminal and seditious nature is a positive. See, this breaching method showed countries A through Z how to cause the only means to defend itself from itself. To counter all the negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures that it caused, besides having roles blaming other things other than themselves for those nature's demonstrations of that. In other words, it made people self-value criminal and seditious natures of means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures more and more only capable of being. Pollution is only capable of being with this system. People in the suburbs can't plant food. Nature demonstrates it's going to cause negative value nature progression. It's a theater. It's a landscape theater that was forced by internationally monitored conversations with crazy laws against what anyone said about it if it wasn't inside an internationally monitored conversation. And then who's going to have free speech there? And who doesn't pretend to an extent that they have free speech there too? They would be sensed through their own for the breaching method. Has a whole bunch of styles and people that like each other not, and the difference of that used eye behind too, where people make treatments of differences. We have the same color eyes and different color eyes at the same time projected to us by the identity that is that one that has the other species bodies too. With fish have two eyes. We didn't invent that. The fish didn't invent that. To an extent, all exception nature show that there's a hyper additional identity value progression that is hyper invisible, but it's still discernible per science. It is conjunction to all parts of speech, of English grammar, of the grammars of the languages. It is why and is how we need all the parts of speech are about the invisible but still discernible. But they also come with this identity of hyper invisible but still discernible. It is discernible where and how. For example, we need to appreciate more than one name to discern the complete identity of what a verb is. we need to discern this identity of hyper invisible but still discernible hyper conjunction to how our nature of any subject, individually grouped or together, is as a quality of diffusion, the ways we know, but also further hyper simultaneously. And we could ignore that system, however, but it will demonstrate with negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and with a special difference forced away from its appreciation of a special difference here as that unabridged hypernative system. In other words, here at Earth, where Earth has a special difference, where it is where we're shown answers, where we are right between where it's about to be too hot and it's about to be too cold, not by accident. We are balanced too. We shouldn't be messing with zero gravity too, especially so we can't get the interbranch to identify themselves legitimately. Please, Fox News, WFSB, Connecticut's Channel 3 News, or yourselves, please do what's right. Get them on paper with the interbranch, and you guys attach me to fake conversations with yourselves at the same time, with names at the crime scenes involved. And it's recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. You guys did that as roles forcing a principal child abuser and other natures of organized crimes. Increasingly, a Leahy family has their kids involved with this on Facebook too. Also with some judges and prosecutors and their family members with some sexual and medical abuses of kids, including women roles. Also, while tactically delusions rot, they've been putting fake things in databases too long. So increasingly, East Hartford has roles with New Britain, a whole bunch of people at New Britain Superior Court involved with former director of the FBI and with people with the name like DeMoro and the name Scalora, involved with FBI Director Robert Luskin with a whole bunch of different countries. And years apart, child abusers, leaders of kids were ones that had roles with that because they had to hide their life progressions, their identity theft, fraud, slanders. I never went to a school with a sub-babygeria. These are people have been yelling things out to fake them. Well, increasingly people involved with differences rackets and the religious spots of the interbranch and foreign and the sexual inclinations, their differences used as timed collusions, where they make fake sides of issues. Increasingly, the recorded capacity demonstrate confirm they increasingly make fake sides of issues. Then they pretend that they could go look at people's behavior, where they're increasingly acting. That's why we have to get the interbranch on paper. In a perfect world, you'd just be able to sue and correct things. But we have the state judicial branch officers and corrections officers, all sides of cases, originally still. So this is how we must be led by the hyper perfect world, anyways. Anyway, it makes the perfect world only increasingly invaluable. I mean, only increasingly existent. Better than perfect world. Makes evolution's fruits, gifts, means out of nowhere for everyone everywhere at once. Otherwise, it be sense. In other words, see, sense and sensibilities use Jane Austen's phrase. It now has been through systems abridged, as Constitution's value abridged. They've been putting fake things in databases in there while being and having been used remotely. The breaching method uses names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, and the news at the same time names next to crime scenes, relative body dumping spots. One's years apart too, where their time uses of them years apart. Their times uses them in the future too. This breaching method uses that remotely. Then people go pretend they can speak for the law anyway. Certain type of victim / hyper victim. Forgiveness is relative to means to discern. The breaching method is means to discern these criminal enterprises, terrorists, counters to them as time collusion / S, and how that is motivated. And the answers are there. We have to attend to what is actually manifest at all locations / S, then further with the database locations, then further with those as the campuses as they are actually manifest. And where there are exceptions and people trying to counter the negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures that we know, like with homeschooling, those are this employed each age of fact-shaping nature. Self-valued roles of communicating other than nature communicates to us. Means to discern at each age of fact-shaping nature. We have means to discern that breaching method was sustained sickly, consciously, sickly, distinctly against Native Americans and against colonists, but also sickly, not distinctly against them. And many kids have tried to communicate. There are proofs that they could discern how sickly, non-distinctly. All we have to do is address how sickly, non-distinctly the Native Americans and the colonists were hurt by the same things. And when they try to do that, like in other words, the same thing happened to the people, the names involved with that, like those countries. They didn't have possessions of themselves. In the narratives regarding those histories, they pretend they do and did. People just go for, people have notions about what titles mean. All readings of statutes and precedents. I'm not even a lawyer, thank God. Our criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. The hyper evidential shows they can't follow mandated law properly. And they self-value that being and haven't been used remotely / hyper remotely. Because other countries that are also, this breaching method showed the identity of suits and ties, counters, and exceptions. They need to hide collusions that with itself that are manifest at all locations, areas, and states in ways that no one fathomed. Because no one would want it to replace what no one wants to put humanity on systems like you're stacked in a building and you have to go get a plastic water bottle. In other words, in other words, the suburbs were designed tactically denatured, and then America's founders were born. If someone wants to debate that, the only reason they can get away with debating it is because of how tactically the criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions rock. The sciences are being valued as. In other words, they're pretending not to realize that people who have been speaking about crimes, they leave out, they have all kinds of predicate acts with facts, methods, way worse than the little kids and adults they're putting in jails that have members there and their campuses named collusion / us with them, with the same natures of crime scenes, including body dumping spots, all fakes. A Justin Klevinskis, a Ray Colo, and a Joe DeMoro have spots near that have roles also with a Eric Burgess, with spots next to the where they said was a serial killer body dumping spot. Even if that was made up, that serial killer in that body and names next to it have roles like gang theft, fraud, slander. I never had a class with Justin Klevinskis. He has a wife as one of the leasing agents involved with there. And these are people with the foreign and domestic military at UConn, involved with all kinds of criminally foreign influence roles with the judges and courts and the judicial and the corrections offices with the unmarked police forms, foreign and domestic, together. And the elements of that, they're using the right to lie where they don't have the right to lie, while being and having been used remotely, so they could have the nature of debate about it used remotely. Criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. Get me off the fake conversations with Connecticut's Channel 3 News about the World Trade Center. WTNH also recorded capacity demonstration confirmed they have roles with their sources in F.B.I. and intercities police departments with houses involved with some untimely deaths and various natures of organized crimes at elderly homes, at child campuses, fire campuses, and medical campuses at the same time. And how that is exploited intercities and intra-cities, intercampuses and intra-campuses. That it's a method that even if the kids or move to another state, or people move to another state, they're building upon predicate acts with facts into databases, and they're acting tied to those predicate acts with facts. Please get them on paper, one name in sequence. I was in the Ninth Circuit Court as an observer too, and can show that names on all sides of that case are ones increasingly they attach to in the Ninth Circuit Court right before the World Trade Center attack, and the court itself has roles with sequence ships, and the ones with wire crimes on my street from other areas with the Wethersfield police. and in the area with them, and the other police departments, like Harvard Police with the O'Brien Colo. They have some, and people tied to them planting evidences with Russians too at corners of streets near schools through time. Rick Cianfaglione also with a Brian Silver and a Brendan Leahy has roles with planting evidences with them next to Central Connecticut State University through time. And people on that street in recorded capacity demonstrate confirm they have roles with the intelligence community at Central Connecticut State University and the various departments individually grouped and together. These are people from Old Weathersfield locations with the founding locations all the way along there through Route 75, right through Newington, right to Central Connecticut State University in Connecticut, are increasingly a whole bunch of names that were influenced to put fake ties, fake natures of ties to me and people I don't know at all. And they would tell you this themselves. And these are the ones who, some of them are in the background pretending other. But they'll tell you once you get them on paper into the branch, onto paper. This is also how they're confessing things while they're pretending other. Increasingly, these are people with spots next to Fox Connecticut News in Hartford, Connecticut, involved with foreign and domestic intelligence before the World Trade Center attack in it and since. These are also people with their differences and the differences of other people involved. And even with people with Washington, D.C. involved with 2 speech class teachers I have roles of wire crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders with people named Pandolf and people at Central Connecticut State University and people at Hartford Hospital with the houses and businesses next to it. Involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, not legitimately with foreign and domestic military with that and all that, etc. These are the ones like Colo and Demoro on off the state corrections offices and judicial branch offices. Also planting evidences, lies about themselves and others to the names next to there. And with a Weathersfield Pizza House. Involved with all kinds of natures of predicate acts with Weathersfield Police. Let's get them on paper, one name in sequence. Yeah, who disbelieves.